Hi, Angel Mom, and thank you for joining me for another episode of the Angel Moms podcast. Now, if you don't already know this, I am going to quickly say that this is also available in audio only format on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or wherever you listen to your podcasts. So if you're an audio only on the go listener, you can check out the episodes there. But for today, I want to jump right into our topic. And that is my unique spin on surviving grief. I truly believe that when we focus on our children's life, not just their death, that things change. Now, you might be thinking, but Lisa, I'm listening to this, watching this because my child died. Like, that's why we're here, aren't we? We're all grieving mothers. Like, how can we stop focusing on that? Hear me out. Now, will this perspective change take your grief away? No. Will it take your pain away? No. I also want to say that we're all unique snowflakes. Prior to losing our children, we coped in different ways. We have different personalities. Different things work for us. Some things work for other people better. My point is to give you something to think about. Okay. I also want to mention that early grief is much different than what I call mature grief. I don't know what the technical terms are, but I think we're all familiar with acute grief or early grief, right? Those early days, months, maybe even years, when all we focus on is the pain, the moment our child died, the details of their death, and so on. Now, I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I'm actually saying that's totally normal. I was that person too. Of course, this is the biggest, most dramatic thing that has ever happened in your life. Of course, you're going to dwell on those details, how it all happened, and so on. But my challenge, if you want to think about it that way, my challenge for you today is to start focusing on your child's life, not their death. If I came to you and I said, hey, Joanne, can you tell me a little bit about Riley? You wouldn't say, Riley died of cancer on December 15th, 2021. That's a part of Riley's story. Definitely. It's part of your story. But is that Riley? No, it's not. Just like I wouldn't say Katie died in a car accident and walk away from the conversation. She was so much more than the girl who died in the car accident. And frankly, I don't want my daughter remembered as the girl who died in the car accident. I want Katie remembered for the vivacious, boisterous, silly, fun-loving, kooky kid with a big, loud voice that could be heard 5 aisles over in the grocery store. I want her remembered for the scholarship that she earned to get into nursing school that she never got to act on. I want people to know about her ridiculous Sephora makeup addiction. Do you see where I'm going with this? Our kids had a life before their death. Now, it doesn't matter how young they were. I was blessed with 17 and a half years. I know not every family gets 17 and a half years. I've worked in oncology for over 33 years, and I know and I see the families who come in for treatment for their children and sometimes don't get to take their kids home. And they are sometimes much younger than 17 and a half years. So honestly, I feel grateful for the years that I got. But my point is, when we focus on our kids' death, that is not focusing on their legacy. So I want to switch gears here for a second and talk about what the heck a legacy is anyway, and why it's important in this conversation. A legacy is simply something that someone leaves behind. Okay. It doesn't have to be a big financial donation to a hospital. That's not what I'm talking about. But a legacy is something that identifies that person, like their personality traits. Were they kind? Were they caring? Were they generous? Were they silly? Did they love practical jokes? What were their hopes? What were their dreams? What were their ethics? What were their core values? That's what I'm talking about. So, as I go on here for the next minute or so, talking about our kids' legacy, I want you just to keep in the back of your mind, I want you to ask yourself, what's my child's legacy? You don't have to have the answer today, but what made them who they are? What is something that you really, really loved about them, that you admired? Okay. So, for me, I always admired two things. Well, many things, but two things for today's conversation about Katie. One was her determination, like, get out of her way. If she had an idea in her head, she wanted to do something, just back off because she was going to find a way to do it. And number two, she had a massive heart. She loved helping other people out. She always felt good about it. And those are the things that I would like to try and emulate more of in my life. I want to have big, bold dreams. I want to help other people out. And maybe, just maybe, those two can work together, like this podcast. Big dream, helping people out. But I want you to think about your child's legacy, because here's what I want you to know. We become our child's representative here on earth after they pass away, right? Because they are incorporated into us now. We are their voice. We are their representative on earth. So everything we do and say, ultimately, on some level, becomes a reflection of them. Now, I don't know about you, but I want to be a positive reflection of who Katie was. Like I say, determined, hardworking, maybe have more fun, maybe make people laugh, help people, whatever it is for you. That's the legacy I want to create for my daughter. But if every time somebody meets me on the street corner, when I'm out for a walk, or they meet me at the grocery store, wherever, and every single time I'm living in misery, and all I'm talking about is that end point in Katie's life, that minute that she died, I become Katie's legacy of misery. I don't want her remembered that way, rather. Like I say, I want to remember for these other things. So I have to talk about those things. I have to represent those things. Ultimately, at the end of my life, I hope somebody might look at me and go, man, that woman went through a lot. She carried a lot, but she never let it destroy her. In fact, she lived her life in a way that carried her daughter's memory on. So by focusing on our kids' life, we are creating that legacy. And there's something inside of you that switches, I swear to God, I can't even put my finger on it or name it. But when you start focusing on all of those blessings, all of those birthdays, all those milestones, like the first time that Katie danced on stage in a dance competition, the first day she took a step, all of these things make up who Katie was and make up her legacy. Okay. So you see where I'm going with this. We also, when we do this enough, we train our brain to focus on their life, not their death. And by doing so, we are creating healthier coping habits. We are creating a space where we can actually start to cope, heal, and find some meaning in their death. If you're not sure what I'm talking about finding meaning in their death, I would highly recommend that you read David Kessler's book, and it's called Finding Meaning. Okay. So I want to send you away with some homework today, because what use is all this information if I don't give you some way to use it and practice it? Because it's all about practicing, right? We don't listen to a podcast once and think, oh, I got this. I'm just going to focus on my child's life, not their death. And, that's going to help me. So there's 3 ways that you can start focusing on your child's life starting today. The first one is sharing stories. This is simple. We love to talk about our kids. And when we talk about our kids and some of the happier memories that we have, something we're proud of about our kids, a memory, this serves 2 purposes. Number 1, it keeps our kids' memory alive. Even my closest friends or my coworkers, they know Katie because I do talk about her a lot, but there's tons of stories that they may not have heard. And every time I tell a new one, Katie's memory stays alive. Okay. The second important thing about telling their stories is that when we share stories with a smile on our face, if possible, it shows other people that we love to talk about our kids. And isn't that what we want? We want other people talking about our kids, asking us questions. So this lets them know that we're comfortable with that. Okay. The second way that we can focus more on their life and their death is to emulate their best traits. So as I mentioned earlier, I want to emulate Katie's hardworking habits, her determination, her desire to lift others up and help people who are maybe struggling a bit. So think about what traits your child had and how you can emulate them into your life. And third, but not least, is to create a legacy project. And we just talked about legacy, right? It's the thing they leave behind. What is it about your child? How can you build that into a project? For example, Katie was very studious. She had just earned herself an entrance scholarship into the Faculty of Nursing. So education was very important for her. So we have 2 scholarships. We have a literary award at our local elementary school. She also loved our backyard. So I created a beautiful angel garden in our backyard, right close to the area that she used to love to read and study. But there's a gajillion ways that you can create a legacy project. Just think about who your child was, perhaps how they passed away. If they died from cancer, maybe you want to create some kind of a cancer-related donation. Really, it's your imagination is the only thing holding you back here. But it can be big, it can be small, but give it some thought. Now, I will say, if you are new into your grief journey, this can seem like a lot. Even focusing on their life rather than their death, you might understand that, but you might think, I just can't right now. And I want you to know that that's normal. There's no pressure for you to start doing this today, unless you want to. But that early grief needs to be dealt with. Like feeling is healing, grieving is healing. If that's where you're at emotionally, lean into it. When you are ready, come back to this video, watch it again, and know that you can make the next step into this focus of life and legacy. So that's your homework for the week, those 3 things. I also want you to know that next week, I have a special guest who's going to be with me on the podcast, Tiffany Agnew. She has a very, very inspiring story, and she's going to share how she copes and how she manages her grief. And I'll also be giving you some hints about some things that are coming up. So exciting. So think about grief community and the importance of physical and mental well-being all combined together. So I'm not going to let you know any more today. So make sure and tune in next week so that you can learn more about what's coming down the pipes. Make sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel so you don't miss a single episode. And we'll see you next week. Take care, Angel Mom.